Good morning, people. Today I'm going to cover the story of Olaf. Olaf came from Norway, where he went to work as a logger in the lower peninsula of Michigan. Now, this was the late 1800s, and many Norwegians went there. In fact, they were mostly Norwegians that worked the river at that time. He was a logger, and he was very large. He was over 6'4", and he weighed over 250 pounds. Solid muscle. Nobody to mess around with. And he let himself be known. Now, he was married to a wonderful lady who respected him greatly. He treated her well. But when it came to other men, he was a little less than kind. One day, one of the men made some kind of remark about his wife, and he went to go after him when another friend of the man that was saying bad things hit him in the back of the shoulders with a log and hit him hard. Most men would have been down on the ground, but not Olaf. He was big and strong, and he was coming after the guy. Now, they're on the logs, so the river is moving. They're on the logs. The logs are going around and around, and nothing's stopping this man, Olaf. He goes and he grabs the man, and he picks him up like he's a piece of meat, and he throws him hard. They say a distance of maybe 20 feet. The man landed and was obviously dead. Now, they went after him, but it took them a few minutes because they were trying to save their friend who was already dead. They didn't know. And Olaf managed to run off. Now, they did not find him, and some 6 months went by, and the river is now running again, and the river is running fast and hard, and there's a log jam, one of the many problems that you have when you're a logger, and the men were trying to pull a large tree who was blocking the river, so they couldn't get the logs down like they wanted. And one of the men got stuck between the logs. Now, this is a big pressure, and they did their best, but they couldn't get anything. They couldn't help. And it was the man who had struck Olaf so many months ago. So they were trying to get it undone, and all of a sudden, with no warning, Olaf came out of nowhere. Now, people are absolutely frightened because he had already tried to kill the man, and he had killed the other man, and the only thing that other man had done is had fallen. So they watched as Olaf reached into between the logs, balancing himself quite well and saving the man. But as he pulled him up and brought him to safety, Olaf himself slipped, went down hard, hit his head, and was never seen again. The owner of the company saw it and knew that it was ironic, but Olaf had died trying to save the man that he originally had attacked. And so he had now paid the ultimate price himself. So he placed a plaque at the location that says, "Sacred to the memory of Olaf Bojorn, who, in the performance of a noble deed, yielded up his life upon this spot, March 9th, 1873. Whatever may have been the person of his life, in death he was a hero." So it just goes to prove that even in the most desperate points of time, things may change and you may find yourself in this kind of situation. Although he had actually tried to attack this man, and this man's friend had tried to save him, and in the instant of anger, he had committed a horrendous deed. In the end, he was the one to save the life of the man he had originally attacked. My second story is of the Bedstead factory fire that happened in the early 30s. And what happened was that one of the men went to light a fire and dipped a rag in kerosene. When he lit it with the attachment to a rod, he contained about 10 gallons of enamel and also a wooden coat containing some half a gallon. Suddenly, the cask of enamel was on fire, blazing fiercely. He tried to put it out, but was unable to quell the flames. The flames spread to the enamel dip and from there to the foundry. It was a really scary situation. And probably the scariest thing is that this lady was living above the foundry and found that her building was on fire. Now, she had 4 small children, and this mother straddled the baby on her shoulder, wrapped her up, and took the 3 children and somehow or another managed to leap 6 feet across an alley. She then ran down the stairs carrying 2 of her children and from the safe building, then ran back upstairs and saved her other 2 children. Now, this lady was, at the very least, a hero in my mind. She faced unknown, terror and saved all 4 of her children, getting badly burned in the process. But I thought that was an amazing story. This is the story of Charles Haight. He was 26 years old and an engineer for the DL&W engine 518, who was ahead of a milk truck of 5 milk cars in a combination car. How he plucked a 2.5 girl from the tracks, which she was facing certain death. The story goes that about 6:45, the train was descending a very steep grade in West Winefield when Mr. Haight discovered a little child on the track between the rails, a short distance ahead of the train. He knew he couldn't stop the train before reaching the little girl, and without hesitation, he went down on the running board, down into the pilot, and with the intention of grasping the child, he lifted her from the danger of the locomotive as it reached her. He succeeded in doing so, but upon grasping the child, her head struck him in the chest, and with considerable force, bearing him backwards upon the pilot beam, where he had great difficulty in hanging on to his burden in his arms until the train came to a stop, and the brakeman assisted him to the ground. The train ran about 5 car lengths before he was able to stop. He was very brave and earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. And he says it was described in The Lure of the Iron Trail, which was presented to the author Ward W. Adair on February 21st, 1913. The engineer, he died in 1937, and he turned his letters and his medals over to his son. It was just a wonderful, wonderful man that saved the little girl from the tracks, a name that should not be forgotten.